4 straight trophies, 1 title, 2 seconds, and a third. And Coach Allen, thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
I've always wondered, as an outsider to the Naperville area, your sectional is always so competitive, always so fast. All the kids know each other. What's the key to having everyone have their A game for state when they all want to show out against their friends in sectionals?
I think each year our sectional's gotten a little bit better and a little bit more focused towards the state meet, and I think that was certainly evident last year. It's really the best state meet in the history of Naperville swimming, having a first, a second, and a fourth place. Yeah. So I think each year it's gotten a little bit better because it does tend to get very competitive at that sectional meet, and you got to remind the guys to stay focused on the state meet, especially when the teams have been as good as they've been these last few years.
We had to talk about that. Obviously, like I just said, graduation happens. You've lost an Alden, an Overholt, a Betulius. Is there, you can see the motivation with the younger guys that they want to step up, they want to be a part of that?
Yeah, we have a much different team this year, and we still have some excellent senior leadership and some guys that are tapering for next weekend that can hopefully, set the tone for some of the younger guys. But, I think this year it's been a little different expectation, and the guys know they have to step up, and I think the guys that have been around for the last 3 years, Kevin Cortez and Connor Jager leading the way, I think we can have a great week next week.
Well, let's talk about the seniors because, like you said, they do have to take the lead. First, Kevin Cortez, everyone knows about him. He's a former state champion. It seems to me, more than any other year, he's raised his level in season. He's posting 56s every week. Is that something that you asked him to do, to lead by example in season, or is that just something he's taken upon himself to?
No, Kevin's just a gamer, so every meet he's going to go out there and swim the way he does. He really rarely has a bad race, but he also knows, when the state meet comes around, he's going to have to step it up for his team. He's on a couple very important relays. We know what he can do in the breaststroke. We've added the 50 free for him this year, so. He's there. He's a very focused individual and very determined to do well next week at the state meet.
Talk about that. You have asked him to take on a sprint freestyler's role this year, which he hasn't had to do before. How do you feel like he's done throughout the season with that?
He's done great. We've lost a lot of sprinters these last two senior classes, so Kevin's become our sprinter, and we have a couple other guys right behind him, and feel like he can kind of set the tone in the 50 free and do well for us in the 400 free relay as well. And he's done a great job as a sprinter. Overall, he is our fastest sprinter on the team.
Now, Connor Jager, you mentioned him, and he's sort of a case study, and you have to figure out how to best utilize your talent. He's done the 200 free the past few years. He's swimming the 500 this year. What went into that decision?
Connor's always been one that can train very well in practice. Last year we were kind of going back and forth with the 500, and he swam very, very well as a sophomore in sectionals at the 500, so we felt like he has quite a bit there in the taper. He trains better than anyone we've really had the last few years, and we feel like he could throw a great 500 together once the taper hits for next week.
Well, and was that something you had to tweak his practices? Because certainly you don't have that much time with these kids. It's relatively a short season, and so if you think you're going to be a sprinter and then all of a sudden you're a distance guy, you need to jump on it quickly.
Yeah, we've tweaked his practices quite a bit this year, especially the back half of the season. Because in the past we really haven't had much for distance guys. We've pretty much stayed focused on the sprinters because that's such an important part of the state meet. But this year, not having a sprint relay, a little bit more versatility there, and we tweaked his practices a little bit, but he's still been pretty driven to go fast in our sprint relays as well.
Well, you mentioned the relays. That's where all the big points are at the state meet, so it can't just be Jager and Cortez swimming 4 times. So talk about these other guys that have had to step up and take the places of the Overholts, the Betuliuses of the world.
Yeah, well, we have one of the top divers in the state, Ted Wagner, who's a senior, so we're expecting a lot from our diver. And then on top of that, we have a couple other guys in the relays that are still unshaved and untapered, and Robert Becchiola and John Mordak, and we're excited to have them on the 400 free relay. And then we had a couple individuals qualify as well, Jerry Wu and Robbie Ciccini. So we're excited about what we have. We feel like we got couple relays that are ready to go a lot faster next week than they did yesterday. And once they get shaved down and fully tapered, I think they'll be ready to go.
One of the things that always interests me is, the HSA comes out with these section results. Are you the type of coach that says, I don't want to see it, I don't care what anyone else did, I'm focused on us? Or are you interested to check them out and see how your boys measure up?
Well, ultimately, it comes down to what your team does. But it is, as a fan of the sport and following other swimmers we know in the area, sure, we like to follow the other teams just to see what they're doing across the state. Is just unreal this year how many medley relays are 136 or better. The 200 free relays are very, very fast. So it's just, I think overall across the board, it's much faster than anticipated, and I'm not sure how many of those people were tapered for yesterday, but we're hoping, most of our guys being untapered and unshaved, that we'll have a little something left for next week.
Well, yeah, I think that's the biggest mystery to sectionals is when you're looking at these results, you know where you're at in terms of your shaved guys, but not anybody else. Is there a school every year that you look at and you go, well, you know they're gonna drop big?
Yeah, I think anytime you're looking at the state meet, you're always going to start with a couple of schools that have been around the last couple of years. Between New Trier, these last 5 or 6 years have been unreal. And then, you always have to look at the defending state champion, Naperville Central, looking very good this year as well. So there's some of those schools that, typically perform well, and, we'd like to hopefully be included with those teams.
This year more than others, there's a couple of downstate schools that have made some noise. Is that something that is on your kids' radar? Is that something they've been talking about?
Sure. I mean, it's probably one of the best years ever from downstate, and they have some incredible times posted right now. And we obviously don't see them during the year, so it'll be very interesting to see how they do. They're seated very well. There's some great swimmers, and Matt Elliott, one of the top swimmers of all time in Illinois, and it's going to be an exciting state meet.
Yeah, I always think it's interesting to see how the suburban schools, the kids, react to the downstate kids. It's almost like they don't know what to think of them until they get up and compete with them. Do you think if you're in a heat next to a relay from someone from downstate, do you think there's any less motivation than if they were swimming a New Trier or another Naperville school?
I don't think it really changes. Ultimately, be a top 6 or top 12 relay, you're going to have to go out and beat most of the people in your heat. So, who you're swimming next to really doesn't matter. You just want to try to get out there in front and try to win your heat, or at least be a top 2 in your heat to have a chance to come back the next day.
Swimming is so much about goals because you're really swimming against the clock. Are there times out there, or making top 5 at state as a team that this team has set its eyes on this year?
I'm sorry.
You couldn't hear me? Oh. Swimming's all about goals. Is there a time for some relays or making top 5 as a team that this team has set its eyes on this year?
We've had some goals. I think, certainly our medley relay being in top 6 in the state is one of the goals. Our 400 free relay, has struggled throughout the year. I don't think we've probably been in the top 20 all year long. But we feel like at the end of the year, our 400 free relay can really come around. Last year we were kind of in the same mode, and we were second place at the end of the year in the 400 free relay, and we're hoping to certainly be in the top 12 with a chance to crack the top 6 in the 400 free relay. So we have some team goals, a little bit different than the last couple of years, but we feel like we're still within reach of those goals.
Again, Kevin Cordes, he's been around, top competitor in the breaststroke. If you talk to him at all about the legacy he's leaving in Neuqua, and obviously now he's a senior, and so this is his last chance to make his imprint, I guess, on the program?
Yeah, I think the matchup between Kevin Cordes and Matt Elliott is, historical. And, Kevin 2 years ago at New Trier swam very well, and, he's a focused individual. And, he knows he's going to have to step it up for his teammates and put the team first. And I think if he has a nice swim in the medley relay, that's just going to continue out and get our team motivated for the whole day.
Is he the sort of kid that helps him to have Matt Elliott, or would he go out and do it even if he was way out in front of everybody?
Kevin is just a driven individual. So he's going to always be ready to go. And he gets very focused on little small things that sometimes the other swimmers aren't quite as focused on, and that's his specialty. And I think when he can put all those things together, he's very determined for the state meet.
Well, Coach Allen, thanks for joining us. Hopefully it wasn't too painful.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Good luck next week. Yeah, Nequa's really had an unbelievable run. We talked about the 4 straight trophies. It's so hard.